All right. Well, welcome to On This Hill. It's a podcast of Church on the Hill, and we're down here in our studio with Ethan, our amazing tech guy, who's filming this today. And I've got two guests with us this morning, Isaiah and Holly Burrell. They happen to be married, happily married ever after, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they are part of our community here at Church on the Hill. Good to have you guys with us.
Thanks.
And they also help with a lot of stuff around Church on the Hill, different ministries. Right now, you've probably noticed that we talk a little bit about a parenting class we're in the middle of, and they're leading a table. You guys are leading a table, leading discussion and so forth. They were on a panel just a couple weeks ago with us talking about what it's like to raise children in a blended family. We'll get into that in just a second. But thanks for taking the time to be with us. Yeah. So how long have you guys been married? What's a little bit of backstory?
Yeah, how
You are
long have we
married,
been
right?
We are married.
Okay.
It's
just
either
checking.
7 or 8 years. I'm the worst at this.
We've been married 6 years.
Is it really?
Yeah.
It feels like an eternity.
We've been together 7.
Yeah. Been together. And you met where? Where'd you meet?
We met at a gym that I was working at.
Nice.
Edge Training and Fitness. I was a personal trainer there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we met.
And she looked like a client, a prospective client that needed some training or?
No. She just, she definitely caught my eye. And that's a whole story if we wanted to go into that. But I just kind of started talking to her and led to us going out on a date, and the rest is history.
Yeah. It's history in the making, right?
Amen.
Yeah. So, been married 6 years. Holly, what do you do work-wise? I know you work in town.
Yeah, I'm a teacher, Salem Kaiser. I am a 5th grade teacher at Hoover.
Fifth
Elementary.
grade.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What's the challenge of teaching fifth graders?
Just steering them in right directions, listening to their truths, hearing where they're at, and I think just helping kind of honor that, but redirecting it into truths, because what the truths they've learned, we have a really a low income, highly affected area where we just they have a lot of trauma, and so kind of redirecting what their community has said is truth, their parents has said is truth, into what I believe God says is truth.
Wow.
Is probably it's an honor, but it's a challenge.
Yeah. We were talking earlier before we started the podcast that you mentioned, you said, I kind of see it as a mission field, my mission field.
Yeah.
Does it feel that way, for you?
It does. I weave God into almost everything that I do, conversations. I look for opportunities when there's lessons that maybe I don't feel right about teaching. I'll pray and sit with it, and God will say, you need to teach it, and you need to teach the truth. And so we take like a Thanksgiving, and they want us to teach about how it's about football and family and food. And I say, well, actually, historically speaking, Thanksgiving is about giving thanks to God for his provision and protection over the year. And when we look at our presidents, we still thank God for provision. So I try to take things that I'm like, and redirect it to God.
Fifth grade's an interesting age to be. I don't even remember now. How old are you in fifth grade, more or less? You're
They're like 11.
11, so they're just coming into
Oh, yeah.
puberty or young adult life and getting ready for middle school.
Yeah.
And so you have 1 year with them to impact.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Is it really at the end of the year?
It's so hard. I didn't realize. I've been teaching for 8 years, and I didn't realize at the end of every summer how sad I was. And it took me this last year. Finally, I was like, this is mourning. I'm mourning the fact that I've spent the last 10 months with this family that I've created in my classroom, and now they're just gone.
Wow.
That's it. And so it's. It's a lot of fun, but it's sad.
It's interesting. Last Sunday, a couple came up to me at the end of the second service, and they introduced themselves. I don't remember ever seeing them before, but I asked how they found us, how'd they find Church on the Hill, and this young man said, I had a mentor when I was at Kennedy Elementary. Now, this guy is in his late 20s, it looks like to me. Yeah. But I had a mentor, and we had Church on the Hill had a mentorship program in Kennedy Elementary at least 12 or 13 years ago. Yeah. And one of his mentors brought him to church, and then about a year ago, he remembered that, and he came back. And he got baptized just two Mondays ago. Wow. But the connection was an adult who took an interest in his life. So it's pretty cool. So, Isaiah, what do you do? I know that there's some backstory there too. What around town? What are you involved in?
Yeah. So currently, I am I get to run Safe Families for Children, which we've been talking about here at Church on the Hill for a bit. So yeah, I've had the privilege of running it here in Marion and Polk counties for the last about year and a half. Yeah, it's a privilege.
So there may be a lot of people watching this that don't know anything about Safe Families. Tell us a little bit about it. Is it nationwide? Is it just local? What is it, and how does it work? What's its purpose?
Yeah, so Safe Families for Children is it's actually international at this point. But how it works is it's implemented locally by a faith-based nonprofit. So Safe Families for Children, it's a Christian organization. And what we do is we wrap around and support vulnerable families in our community, isolated families who are dealing with some sort of crisis. And what we do is we mobilize the church. Some of our volunteers open up their homes to host these vulnerable kids. And then myself and other volunteers will wrap around and support mom or dad to help them to get back on their feet. Because the whole goal behind it is to help this family become their own safe family. Right. So that, whatever circumstance they're going through, what we want to try to prevent is that family from, continuing in that traumatic crisis.
Spiral, yeah.
That spiral, which oftentimes leads to abuse and neglect of the kids. And it's not because they don't love their kids. It's just that they are overwhelmed and have no one that they can call and turn to. And so we as the church, that's our mission field. That's our call, is to support the vulnerable in our community, orphans, widows, wrapping around and supporting them as the church.
Hospitality.
Biblical hospitality.
Hospitality, yeah. Mm-hmm. So give us a scenario just so we can wrap our minds around this. So this is not anything to do with DHS or foster care.
Right.
It's a totally different concept, different organization. Mm-hmm. But so give us a scenario. How would someone come in contact with Safe Families? What would that look like, and what's that process?
Yeah. So what I'll say real quick is that we're a bit upstream from the foster care system.
Okay.
So we recognize it's not that the foster system is bad. They are definitely overwhelmed. Lots of families, right. And honestly, lots of families that unnecessarily kind of get taken into the foster system for various circumstances. So we try to get a little bit more upstream, again, before the abuse and neglect ever happen to the children. So a scenario, actually a family that we've been starting to work with, mom has to spend a small sanction of time in jail, and she has no support system. And so in that...
No family, no church community.
Correct. Yeah, no family, no friends, at least no one that's safe, a safe option for her kids to go to.
Right.
So she's going to have to spend some time in jail. And so in that circumstance, if Safe Families wasn't involved and she had nowhere for her kids to go, DHS would get involved. The kids would be placed in the system. Right. Mom would spend her time in jail. She would come out and then have to go through several steps in order to get custody back of her children. And in that whole package, there's just a lot of trauma that comes from that, for both the mom and the children. And so what we were able to do is meet with her, kind of talk about what we do. And now her kids are going to be hosted by one of our host families.
Nice, okay.
During her time in jail, she's going to be able to call them, have conversations with them. And then as soon as she's out, she's going to be greeted by her kids.
Yeah. And how did they find you? How did you find each other?
Yeah.
Like this lady was in trouble. Was it a court connection or was it outside or?
No, I think if I remember right, this mom in particular heard about Safe Families from her counselor.
Okay.
And so that's oftentimes how these families hear about us is, me meeting with the schools, with hospitals, with police agencies, with counseling offices, anywhere where they would have that direct interaction with a family, and they can see like, okay, this family is struggling, they're going through a crisis, so they become aware of Safe Families and then begin to share that.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the word hospitality. Talk about that a little bit, because we think of hospitality as having everybody over for Thanksgiving, and we cook a great meal, and we have some friends and family, but this is a different level of hospitality. Like, can you comment on that? Like, it sounds like that's kind of the biblical basis,
right?
Sort of for Safe Families.
Yeah, I mean, hospitality. It's not putting on a show. It's doing life together. Mm-hmm. It's the doing the dishes, the cooking the food, the going to church, or the just breathing life into somebody, into these children. And who better to do that than the community of our church to come along in this broken spaces where Satan may want to speak a lot of untruths and create hurt that could be perpetuated and furthered. But we have these families come along who can just be with them and love on them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think our culture kind of has this picture of hospitality. You know, if I go to a hotel and they have a really nice shower and maybe they have
breakfast bar or something.
Yeah, breakfast bar. We say,
K-Pods or something.
Unlimited. That hotel was very hospitable. But really, the root of hospitality is love of stranger. And so as Christians who love God, and God calls us to invite in our neighbor, and that neighbor is everyone, right? So we think about, again, the vulnerable in our communities that don't have relationship. What a beautiful picture to say, hey, we're going to invite you into our home. We're going to love you. We're going to meet you right where you're at. That's hospitality right there.
Yeah. And it's no secret anybody that would look around could see that I think our culture is increasingly more isolated, fragmented, and so forth. And so the idea of biblical hospitality just is the answer, or one of the ways the church reaches out. Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about how you might want to get involved in Safe Families if you're interested, because we have some training coming up and so forth. But talk a little bit, let's go back to you guys. Married 6 years, so talk about family a little bit, because you guys are a family, obviously, but it sounds like a little bit of a blend. So,
well, I have Mihaela, who just turned 18, and I had her at the age of 22, and she was my lifesaver. I was definitely down a rocky path and was definitely protected from getting pregnant, but God said, nope, you're gonna reap this fruit, and it's gonna change your life, and she did. And so I had Mihaela. I mean, I hesitate to say I was a single mom. I was in like making decisions and that kind of thing. But she did. I met her dad, Matt, who she kind of has her biological father, who she has a much better relationship with now. But then she had a dad, Matt, who raised her. Him and I met when she was 1, and we separated when she was 4, and then he just has stayed dad consistently the rest of her life. So I don't like to say I'm a single mom, but there was definitely that season was her and I, and then Isaiah came into the picture.
Yeah, and
when she was 13, I think, right? She was
11.
11.
Yeah.
Numbers.
Yeah,
what did you bring to the relationship?
Yeah, so I was still in the midst of a divorce when I met Holly, actually. But from that marriage, I brought 2 children, Ava and Isabel. So Ava was almost 3 at the time. Isabel was not quite born yet. She was about to be born. We met, so I brought 2 kiddos into our relationship, and there were challenges with that for sure.
Sure, I bet.
And then in 2020, we brought our first child together into the world. So God blessed us with Liam. William is his full name. Born right in the midst of the pandemic. So.
March 2020.
Yeah, that's it. It was right in the midst of it, wasn't it? So talk about a little bit that you mentioned. There were challenges. Like, what were the adjustments that bringing 2 lives on very different paths? You come together, you bring children in, and what did it take to make that work?
Well, I think that now looking back, we recognize that what you reap, you sow. And when we met, like Isaiah had mentioned, he was in the process of divorce. His ex-wife was pregnant. And here we were in our happiness, starting a new life, meeting and happy and in love, and not done the biblical way. We understand now why God calls us not to divorce and to be careful when we pair, and just lots of different principles and guardrails that he sets for us, and what happens when we move outside. And he gives us those opportunities as free will, but we do make life harder on ourselves when we don't stay within the guardrails that God sets for us. So that looked like Isaiah said he was in. I did not know he was getting a divorce when we met. Unfortunately, that was before Isaiah was saved, and I was told that he was previously divorced, and I didn't know there was a baby on the way. So there was this whole
a little bit of a surprise.
there was he almost got a plate of food thrown at him when I found out. So to say that those first few years were traumatic are kind of an understatement. But definitely God has brought beauty from those ashes.
Wow. So relatively new to the faith.
Yeah, 2017.
2017.
When I gave my life.
Yeah, and how did that happen? What were the circumstances? The short version of.
Yeah, many circumstances. I would say 3 things. One, just feeling the weight of my deceitfulness. So kind of reaching an all-time low internally in my life. Started attending Church on the Hill with Holly, beginning of 2017, I think New Year's Day or day after I started coming, and just message after message, God was speaking to me. And so I experienced that for the first time. And so not only was I hearing God, but I was experiencing God through Holly. She shared a little bit about some of my deceitfulness coming in. And there's honestly a lot to unpack there, but there was a lot of deceitfulness and dishonesty, and yet she showed me mercy and grace that I've never experienced. Mm-hmm. So I was hearing about God's mercy and grace and forgiveness. I was experiencing it through Holly, and then just kind of all of that culminating. I realized like God exists, because my worldview before that was that God doesn't exist.
You're on your own.
Yeah. So I experienced him for the first time and decided like I want to follow this God that I'm experiencing. So.
Yeah, that's a fast track there, just 6-7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And now you're involved in a ministry trying to help families that are in trouble for a variety of reasons, and you're the partner in all this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you guys work together in Safe Family sometimes, or you're just in the teaching world and he's in this, or is there some crossover?
Yeah.
I serve on their board.
Okay.
But really, I think that the most joy that I have is just being that sounding board for Isaiah, just prayerful about it and problem solving with him. And I was a community organizer myself prior to becoming a teacher. So it's incredible to watch how God has weaved my experiences into being able to support this ministry, because I love his ministry that he's in.
Yeah.
Safe Families, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. She is the brains behind this, because she definitely is far more than just a sounding board. I mean, I love being able to just share stories with her and then share challenges with her too. Mm-hmm. And she always has just had a wise and timely word for me to say, wow, I didn't think of it that way. I'm going to go ahead and move forward with that, with whatever challenge I'm facing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, we certainly are partners in this ministry. I'm not in this on my own. So
yeah, one of the things we've been talking about in the family class, the parenting class we're doing, is this idea that unless my life is aligned with God, I can't help but be. If my life is not aligned with God, then my family's going to be out of alignment. Mm-hmm. My kids are going to, like you said, reap what I've sown through no fault of their own. They're sort of the innocent recipients, right? Yeah. And so, what is you came to know the Lord about 6 or 7 years ago, and you made a decision that He's worthy to be served, and He really should be running your life. Mm-hmm. Was that the shift? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm done running my life, and I think He should be running it.
That was exactly the shift, and it was. Just conviction after conviction after conviction from that point on, of just like I was doing things this way, and God is showing me that's not the way to life. That's a way to death. Yeah. And so it's just been a continual, sanctification.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're on a journey together. How long have you been a believer?
I mean, I remember my best friend's mom. All through elementary and middle school, taking me to church. But because of my own parental dynamics and not having a dad, I didn't know how to relate to God for a really long time. So even though I felt that I would say that I was a Christian, I would say that I believed in God and loved God, but there was a huge disconnect between getting that information from my head to my heart. So it took I would say honestly that if I could say when I became a believer, I would say it was after I saw Isaiah be so committed to God. And there was so much healing that came through watching him become a believer and what a believer looks like and what a relationship with God looks like, to understand that what I was doing was so surface level that there was no fruit from it.
Yeah. Did you find it hard to relate when you hear phrases like, God's father heart or God is a father? Was there like a disconnect there of just relating, oh, that's not how I see it, or that's a little bit of a disconnect?
Yeah. In fact, this morning I was listening to some worship music and the artist said father, and for a moment it not irked me, but
tweak, a little bit.
Because I am good with Jesus. Like, I'm like, Jesus, you're my dude. God, it's taken me some time to understand his love. And, over the last few years, he's had to, I'm such a delicate flower that he's just like, let me continue to show you, Holly, like how much I love you. And I'm thank you. And I mean, there's literally one time when I was crying I think it was one of our first Monday night things. And it was COVID time and vaccine shots. And I was, God was telling me not to sit still and not get it. And I'm like, well, this is my job. And I'm the primary breadwinner at the time, and I carry insurance, and I don't know what to do, God. And I'm like crying, and I was sitting on the floor, and I was like, you need to tell me that you see me. You need to show me that you love me and that you see me and that you're with me. And no joke, 3 minutes later, one of the other ladies came up, and she was like, hey, I just need to come over here because God told me that I needed to come tell you that he sees you and that he loves you. And I was just like, okay, I'll buy in.
Yeah. That's awesome. Little things like that.
Yep.
I've heard just a little bit of your story, but back to the father heart of God thing. How did that play in what, your family of origin, background, relationship with dad or whatever, and even coming to know the Lord and coming to know God as a father? How does that, what's that journey been like for you?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a bit tricky. So my dad was in prison most of my life. And so biological father wasn't physically there. We would write letters back and forth, and that was kind of our relationship all of my childhood. But what I did have were just some amazing men in my life. There were a couple men that were Christian, but kind of like Holly said, kind of surface level. I wouldn't say that I grew up hearing the gospel spoken or even seen it, but just really good, morally good men for the most part, and they just really poured into me, and so I looked to them as father figures. So when I had this moment of giving my life to Christ, I certainly had wounds that I needed to take to God and allow him to heal. But I feel like at this point I have a good understanding of the father heart of God, especially now being a father, and not just being a father, but being an invested and intentional father.
Yeah, big difference.
Big difference. And so it's kind of a beautiful dance in a way of like I am learning what it means to be an actual father the way that God would want me to be a father,
right,
as I'm learning more about God as my father. Yeah. So it's like kind of this beautiful dance.
Yeah, it happens simultaneously, or in parallel, I guess. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
And it's interesting to parallel that to where Isaiah said that he saw the love of God through me, and that's where I see Father's heart is through Isaiah, watching him be a dad, for sure. Like understanding this is what God's love looks like.
Yeah,
this is what a father's love looks like.
Yeah. Can I go back to say families for a minute? A lot of these families you mentioned are in a place of trauma. They've gotten the circumstances, that now are spinning out of control, or consequences are raining down on them. And What do you say to people in those situations in relation to your journey with God? Is there any you have opportunities to share the hope that's within you?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's what I love about this ministry is, I get to, again, just meet these families right where they're at, kind of sit in this chaos that they're feeling, and in a very tangible way offer hope of, hey, we have these amazing families who love God. They're willing to watch your kids for a period of time, and then kind of talk them through what that looks like. But then also the opportunity and beauty I have to just listen to God and then offer to these families, hey, can I pray with you?
Yeah.
So that I really ask God to say, hey, I want you to speak through me to these families and give them a hope that I could never do from my own voice.
I would imagine that your past journey, with your families of origin and your lives and so forth, does that play into it as well? And a sense of empathy, like, I understand how you feel. I'm not just a perfect Christian coming with a program. Right. I understand hopelessness, or I understand trauma. Does your past play into that somewhat?
Yeah, big time. I think about, my mom, amazing woman, single mom. She would date here and there growing up, but she was pretty much kind of doing it on her own. And by the grace of God, we had like my grandparents and, she has a brother. And so we had family in the area that really helped and supported. But I look back and think, like, had we not had that support system, our story would look a lot different. And so I understand the benefit and the beauty in having support. So I can absolutely have empathy for these families that have kids and just want to do what's best for their kids, and the one thing that they don't have is relationship. Right,
yeah, that's amazing. So the Safe Families, you said earlier before I think we started that it's kind of an a la carte sort of a thing. Like you can maybe get involved in a smaller way or a simpler way in the beginning, as simple as what. Taking them to a doctor's appointment, or can you talk about that? Or you can get, you can dive in as much as you want. But
sure.
What's the range look like?
Yeah. So, the range could look anything from, somebody who, what we would call like a family coach role. So getting involved with the family, helping them to set goals, and then walking alongside them to, point them in the areas they need to go to meet those goals. It could be actually hosting kids in your home for a period of time, maybe a few hours so mom can go to a doctor's appointment, maybe a month so that a dad can go through detox or something like that, or spend some time in jail. And then even, other tangible ways, what we call a family friend or a family mentor could just meet with, like, literally be a friend. So showing up to the mom or dad's home, sitting with them, being that sounding board, voice of encouragement, or even just, hey, can I help you clean up your house? Can I help you do your dishes? Can I help you fold your laundry? Hey, do you want to go?
And that's welcomed. That's
absolutely
that's
welcome.
Not an awkward thing. It's actually welcome.
No.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so we start small and just really start to build relationship. But the ultimate hope at the end of this is that now this family has a natural support system from members of the church.
Yeah.
So saying, hey, you want to come to church with us now? You want to go grab lunch?
Yeah.
So it's just a natural friendship at that point.
Yeah.
And I think it normalizes community.
Yeah.
Right? Like to people that don't have community, they don't understand that I can actually allow my darkness, the stuff in the dark, to come to the light and have a safe community around me that says, okay, let's get through this together.
I understand.
Yeah.
We're with you.
Yeah.
Huh.
Instead of thinking the church is out there and they're perfect and I'm a mess and
I don't want to show up
I
there.
don't want to show up and I'm going to be hated or, shunned or whatever. And I can't go to those people. Those people just become their people.
Yeah. That's amazing. So here at Church on the Hill, we're having a training for anybody that's interested in getting involved. It's March 10th. That's a Sunday from 1 to 5. Yep. It's about a 4-hour training. And If someone just wanted to dabble in it and kind of hear it, could they come for all or a portion of that and hear the more details and connect with you? And
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to have any knowledge of Safe Families to come to this.
Yeah.
Generally, the first portion is going to be pretty informational, so we'll really dive deep into what we do and why we do it. And then from there, it's more training intensive. So definitely, if somebody is just like, hey, I want to know more, I would highly encourage come to this. We will feed you, so there will be Chipotle,
right.
is most likely the case.
Yeah.
So come to that. And then if you are saying, you really feel like God is moving you to get involved, you can stay for the rest of the training. And pretty much after you leave the 4-hour training, you're leaving there being a vetted volunteer. We're just kind of waiting on a couple things like the background check.
Right.
But essentially what we call activated. You're an activated volunteer. So once you get to that point, I would be reaching out and sharing of referrals that are coming in and offering it.
Yeah. If you can help. I mean,
If you can
here's
help,
a referral, here's a circumstance, and could it fit for
Yep.
you? Would it be a fit for you?
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of it is it's 100% voluntary, both on the family side, like they know that this is a Christian organization, and that means their kids are going to go to church and prayed for, and so it's 100% voluntary from the parent side and also from the volunteer side. When I reach out and saying, hey, this is the need, can you fill it? You have the choice to say yes or no, depending on where you're at and the season, and that's really the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that is March 10th, 1 o'clock at our South Campus here at Church on the Hill, and and comes with lunch.
Yep.
So yeah. Well, I think our time is about up. We hope you've enjoyed listening to their story, Isaiah and Holly's story. It's a story that's continuing to be written, one chapter at a time. 6 years in, or 7. Who's counting?
Not me, clearly.
But thanks for what you do, missionary to the public school system. Thanks for what you do, a hospitality missionary to the hurting and broken. Thanks for being a part of our community. You guys you're great parents and you have great kids, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure having you with us. And so, come find us here at Church on the Hill if you're interested. If this podcast was helpful to you or you liked it, pass it on to somebody else. We're here every Sunday. We'd love to have you at Kaiser Campus, our South Campus, and we'll be back next week. We'll be back. So God bless.